Oh my God, that's not right. They need to pay him some big money for that.
And as compensation after he was released, he was given only $75.
What? This man spent 31 years in prison and y'all gave him 75 bucks. Excuse me, exactly what the hell do you expect him to do, or anyone to do with $75? Excuse me? What up, AOK Mafia? It's your boy Artofkickz, and just like that, we back with another one. Alright, y'all, so it's been a while since I've done one of these videos, man. This is a top 10 video, but this is a little bit different. Instead of folks reacting to their prison sentence, these are folks that had already received life sentence, but, you know, later on the verdict determined that they were no longer guilty, so they're being released from prison. So this is going to be something, hopefully, on the positive side. But I really don't know what to expect, so we just gonna jump right into it. Y'all boys, girls ready? I'm ready. Let's go.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 10 people found not guilty after serving life sentences.
Let's see it.
If you do a really serious crime, you will get a life sentence in prison. This is given after people are found guilty for doing their crimes. But many people are wrongly found guilty every single year.
All the
Who
time.
knows how many people who didn't do a crime will spend their entire life behind bars for no reason? Well, here are some true stories of people found not guilty after spending a lifetime in jail.
There's a group, I was actually watching a Joe Rogan podcast recently. There are people out here that actually go around and find these cases of these people that's being wrongfully convicted to sentences, either life sentences or just long-term sentences in prison for crimes that they did not commit, and they're out here trying to correct that and right that wrong and help these people, you know, find true justice and get them out of the prison system. But it's tough, like, especially here in America. Our system is so flawed. So there's been plenty of times where all the evidence points to people being completely innocent, and the judge and the jury and stuff will still convict that person. It's a shame, man.
Some of these are so crazy and will really make you question our justice system. Before we get into it, why not subscribe and press the notification bell too? Coming in at number 10, we have Lawrence McKinney.
The name sounds familiar. This guy looks familiar.
McKinney is now 60 years old and comes from Memphis, Tennessee. In 1978, he was wrongfully convicted of stealing a lady's TV. According to the prosecution, he also did
1978, still in a woman's TV.
unspeakable things to the lady.
Oh.
And for this, he was sentenced to 115 years in prison.
Woo,
15 years
115.
for taking the TV and 100 years for the other things.
15 years for taking the TV and 100 years for the other things that he did to this woman, supposedly. Dang, that means if he was wrongfully convicted, then the person that did the crime got away. They got away with this crime. Crazy.
So, he was expected to spend his entire lifetime behind bars. But 31 years later in 2009, new DNA evidence came about. The stunning DNA evidence found Lawrence was not even on the scene. He was released in July of 2009 after 31 years behind bars.
Woo! This man spent my whole life in prison. God dang. Oh my God, that's not right. They need to pay him some big money for that.
And as compensation after he was released, he was given only $75.
What? This man spent 31 years in prison and y'all gave him 75 bucks. Excuse me, exactly what the hell do you expect him to do, or anyone to do with $75? Excuse me? What am I supposed to do with $75? I done spent 31 years of my life in prison. What? Nah.
That's right, they took away 31 years of his life for no reason and then gave him $75 to say sorry. At the time he said he was happy he was released, but he says he has no life. His entire life was taken away. Now his lawyer is fighting for him to get $1 million compensation.
Yeah!
But I think even $1 is not enough for 31 years in prison for no reason. And I can't believe they tried to give him $71 and then told him to just leave after taking away 31 years of his life. This is really one of the most terrible stories I've ever heard.
See, a lot of times too, what the average person on the outside of the prison system doesn't realize, and even the people that put folks in prison, what they don't realize is when someone has been in there for this long, prison is their life. Prison is what they know. You can't expect to throw this person out into the real world, into the free world, and expect for them to know exactly what to do with themselves. A lot of times people commit crimes or do things just to get themselves back in prison to a place that's familiar. Folks, man. Ooh, man. Yo, I hope this lawyer can help you get that money, bro.
And I hope Lawrence does get a lot more money in the future, but nothing can give him his life back.
No. Ooh. Golly. Those were those kind of times too where people were wrongfully convicted, especially African American people in this country. They dealt with it a lot. I mean, it was every nationality, but too often did you see African American people being wrongfully convicted of a crime, especially one that they didn't commit just because, oh, it was a black person, maybe it was this one. Look through the books, you'll find hundreds, if not thousands of cases like that.
Craig Coley. This one took place in California around 40 years ago. In 1978, Craig Coley was accused of taking 2 lives. Those being his 24-year-old girlfriend, Wanda Witch, and also Simi Valley, her 4-year-old son. But in 2018, nearly 40 years later, Craig was acquitted. He was freed after it turned out the district attorney at the time cited false evidence. Now, unlike Lawrence McKinney before, he was given a more decent compensation. He was given $140 for each day he was in prison. But
wow.
That's still not very good, seeing as
$140 for each day he was in prison. I mean, he was in there a long time, but at the same time, that's still really messed up. And $140, like that's like the average salary of a maybe slightly over minimum wage full-time worker, like, or even minimum wage. Like a full-time work day is about that much, and that's not right. What if this dude wanted to strive to be successful, wanted to strive to be greater? Like, that's not enough money. And y'all had this man in prison because a lot of times what happens is if a woman and her child dies, a lot of times they may look to the husband or boyfriend, and it seemed like that might have been the case. They look to the boyfriend, and for whatever reason they decided he's the one that was guilty, when lo and behold he's not.
He said every day was a living nightmare. Also, he's now 70 years old and he went in when he was only 30. This means they've pretty much taken his entire life away, and he'll likely spend more of his life behind bars than free.
Yeah.
In total, his compensation was around $2 million. But he spent a ridiculous 14,000 days behind bars. He says money nor anything can make up that time lost.
Exactly, man. I mean, yeah, I can sit back and retire with this $2 million, but dang, all the life I missed, all the technology I missed, all the women I missed, potentially finding love and settling down, getting married and having kids, traveling the world. I'm old now. I'm gonna be pretty much doing the same thing that I was doing in prison, except for I won't have to worry about death threats and getting beat up. I'm just gonna be sitting here chilling, doing nothing. Depending on how well he took care of himself. If he's 70, he might can still move around, do some stuff, you know?
And it makes you think how many other people are behind bars for no good reason right now. Next up is Wilbur Jones. Wilbur Jones was sentenced to life in prison in Louisiana in 1971. He apparently kidnapped and did terrible things to a nurse. He was only 19 years old when he was arrested and given life in jail. And the crazy thing is, the only evidence against him was a police lineup. Wilbur was simply picked out of a police lineup.
This is what I'm talking about, y'all. Now, I know for a fact, after I said what I said about African-American men in this country during those times, that upset a lot of people, and that's wrong for you. That is very wrong for you to feel that way, to be upset, to think as though I said something that was incorrect and not true just because of your own ignorance. I'm going to need you to do better. I'm going to need you to do better. When it comes to something serious like this, it's not going to come out my mouth if it's not true. Understand that. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Learn something today about me. This is one of those type of cases. 19 years old. Only thing that they gonna have on him is the fact that he was in a lineup and they just pointed a finger. That used to happen a lot. There's a lineup. Oh, I think it was him. Or yeah, it's him. It's him. Yeah, I'm sure it's him. And now somebody is spending the rest of their life in prison just because somebody got it wrong.
By the nurse. But it turns out the nurse was incorrect and Wilbur had nothing to do with it. At the time, she actually told officers the person who did that to her was actually way taller and had a different voice. But the officers did not care and very controversially sent him to life in prison.
You hear? You hear? The woman, the nurse that accused this man that pointed him out of the lineup, she herself said, oh, actually, he had a way different voice and he was much taller than that. Oh, it don't matter. I mean, look, we're just gonna put this one in jail. That's what they did. That used to happen. That used to happen.
The case was very controversial by his family, who says he definitely did not do this. And after they partnered up with the New Orleans Innocent Project, he was found not guilty. He hugged his lawyers and cried as he was finally released out of jail after 50 years. He's now 65 and is said to be very frail and aging. The nurse he apparently did this to actually passed away in 2008. Wow. And the nurse's late husband actually said that he agrees that Wilbur should have been released.
You see that? You see that? I'm telling y'all, look, there are people right now in my comment section, and this video is not even on YouTube yet. I'm just sitting here talking to myself. But there are people, that's how well I know folks. That's how well I know how folks act. But there are people right now in my comment sections that are furious. They're looking for every reason for me to be wrong and to even make this man be guilty when he's not. Even the husband was like, yo, that man should have been released out of prison a long time ago. He wasn't the one. We knew that. We always knew that. But the justice system, they don't have control over that. I'm pretty sure that man, the husband of the nurse, could have went to them and been like, hey, yo, y'all got the wrong man in there. Y'all need to get him out of there. And it's a strong possibility that they would have done nothing. It's a lot of loops that you got to go through in order to get that to actually happen. And a whole lot of evidence that need to be presented to prove this man's innocent. Because you're guilty till proven innocent, not innocent till proven guilty.
Nurse and Tim did not agree Wilbur really did it, but it seems some corruption was taking place and the police wanted to put Wilbur away forever. Luckily he's out now, but he's already had his entire life taken away. Next up is Kristen Lobato. On the 8th of July 2001, a girl named Kristen Lobato, who was only 18, was sentenced to life behind bars. In a Las Vegas, Nevada court, she was sentenced to 100 years in prison. They'd claimed that she'd taken the life of an innocent person. That is because they'd found a man who was not alive. Days before this, Kristen was jumped by a similar-looking guy at a motel. She was able to defend herself with a knife and the man ran off. That's the last Kristen saw of it and she didn't report it to the police. However, she did tell her friends and one of her friends reported this to the police. They then assumed that the person that she defended herself from was the person who was not alive. And also because she was not sober at the time, they got her to wrongfully confess to what she did.
If I was this girl, I'd be so mad at my friend. Ooh, I'd be so mad at my friend. We ain't friends no more.
This was the only evidence against her, and they didn't have any other key evidence.
See, this is what I'm talking about, y'all. Too often does this stuff happen where the evidence is not solid enough against you, but yet they feel like they have enough to convict you, man. And this poor girl, all she did was try to defend herself from a would-be assailant or a attack against her. The man ran off. They find a dead body somewhere, And because this incident was reported by her friend, that they went on ahead and accused her of the dead body that was found that wasn't even the same guy. Crazy, man. Ugh. This stuff is so aggravating. So aggravating.
But after she spent 16 years in prison saying she didn't do it, she was finally found not guilty. It turned out that the guy who she defended herself from had come forward, and the person the police found who was not alive was a totally unrelated thing. Kristen simply defended herself and had nothing to do with taking anyone's life. But sadly...
You see this mess? You see this mess? She simply defended herself and spent 16 years in prison. That's why I tell folks, man, you got to be careful out here. Even if you're in the right, you have to be careful out here. One of the most painful things to deal with, emotionally wise, is being someone who is innocent and being told that you're guilty. Is something that I dealt with on a smaller scale a lot growing up, and it's something that made me feel like I was so alone in the world, is when I was innocent for something, but the people involved believed that I was guilty. And for that, it didn't matter what I said, they wasn't going to believe me for nothing, even though I was innocent or I was telling the truth. And I'm being made out to be a liar. I hate that feeling. I hate that feeling.
It was too late. She'd already spent 16 years in jail. The crazy thing is, Kristen had an alibi the entire time, but they didn't believe it. Luckily now she's out and is a free woman. And also because she was only 18 by the time she was sent to prison, she has a whole long life to live. She is nearly 40 now, and they did take away a lot of years of her life. But she didn't have it as bad as some other people on this list. Nevertheless, imagine how scary it would be at 18 being sentenced to life in prison for something you never did. Next up is Kwame Ajimu. This one took place in Ohio, USA in 1975. When this man was only 29 years old, he was sentenced to life in prison. Apparently he'd taken the life of a salesman, but this was not the case. There was a witness statement saying he was there when it happened, but it turned out to be a lie. He was then convinced to testify, as they said he's going to go to jail forever anyway. He spent a crazy 27 years in prison for doing nothing.
Ooh,
Under Ohio law, the wrongfully convicted earned $40,000 per year they were in jail. And seeing as he was behind bars for 27 years, that means he gets $1.1 million. But nothing can buy back that much time, and they really did ruin his life. He was seen bursting into tears when he was finally found not guilty of all charges.
Oh, I can feel it. Oh, I can feel his pain. I'm over here trying to keep from daggone tearing up, man. I can feel that, man. Oh, this man spent 27 years in prison. If the justice system finally did something for him, he's being released, and they pay him what, 1.5 million dollars for the time he spent. I mean, it's good to have that much money come your way once you get released out of prison, and now you have some money that you could do something with to get your life going with. That's a lot of money. You could definitely start a business. You can do all kinds of things. You could travel. You could do all the stuff that you didn't get to do, but still you can't. You still can't, because those useful years, they're behind you now. Ooh. Man, that's not right, man. That is not right. Man, the system.
He said he was so happy this battle has come to an end, and he hugged his wife and the judge. I'm not sure how I'd feel if I was him. Happy, sad, or angry. Probably a mix of all three. Next up is Ricky Jackson. When Ricky Jackson was just 18, he was sentenced to life in Ohio. He actually joined the Marines at 18, but had to leave as he had a bulky back. Soon after he returned home, Harold Frank...
Wait a minute, what does that mean? Somebody comment down below what that means. He had a bulky back, so he had to leave... What?
...had his life taken, and they blamed Ricky Jackson. Apparently someone went into his money order store, stole $400, took his life, and then fled. They didn't have any good evidence against Jackson. All they had was a statement from a local paperboy who was 12 years old who said he saw Jackson. The jury...
If that ain't right. If that ain't right. They went off of what a 12-year-old boy said without having solid evidence.
Said this 12-year-old's account, and Jackson was sentenced to life in jail. At first, he was even sent to the electric chair, but luckily 2 years later, the sentence was reduced to life. Finally, in 2017, all charges against him were dropped. It was found there was no evidence and that he didn't do any crimes. It's absolutely terrible. They took 40 years of his life away for no good reason. He says he's finally free and is for once enjoying life. But he says it's scary just how easily people can take your entire life from you.
Exactly, man. It's scary. It's so scary just how easily, like this man said, how people could just take your life from you like that, man. It's so unfair. It's so unfair to think about it, man. You know, some folks out here, they think, man, if you don't do anything, then you have nothing to worry about. That's not true. That's not true. I've had so many people say that in my comment section. Oh, if you're not doing anything, the cops not going to bother you. I wish that was true. I wish that was true. There's been many a times where, oh my God, even myself, where I was walking down the street, maybe driving in the car, got stopped, got pulled over, got frisked, got questioned. Guess what I was doing? Absolutely nothing. Didn't have anything on me. No drugs, no weapons. Was completely innocent. But yet, I was made to look like I was doing something illegal or guilty or something that I was not. That statement of if you're not doing anything, that nothing gonna happen to you is not true. It isn't.
And he actually met with the paperboy who put him behind bars, and he says he forgives him. That is such a big thing to do, and I can't imagine forgiving someone for doing that. But Jackson is clearly very strong-willed, and I'm glad he's finally free.
He's like, oh look, a smartphone. Wow, we didn't even have cell phones when I went to prison. That's crazy.
Next up is Mark Denny. When Mark Denny was only 17, he was sentenced to life in prison in Brooklyn, New York. Apparently in 1987 he'd robbed someone and done terrible things to them. But after spending 30 years behind bars, he was finally let out. He asked many times for DNA testing but was rejected. But luckily the Innocence Project stepped in and they got a DNA test. They found he actually was not responsible for it whatsoever. His defense said Mr. Denny has been waiting for this day for a very long time. And to be honest, that's an understatement as he served 30 years for no reason.
30 years, man.
Next up is Richard Phillips.
This is crazy.
In 1971, someone took the life of a man named Gregory Harris. His brother-in-law said he saw Richard Phillips near the scene. They believed the brother-in-law and he was sentenced to life in jail. Richard Phillips didn't do anything, and when he went into jail he was 27. Now he's 72 and he was only just let out. That's right, he spent 45 years in prison for something he didn't do. The only reason he was let out is because they found the real person who took Gregory's life. It's quite crazy it took them all.
It took them 45 years to find the real killer, and they got the wrong man in jail this whole time. But yeah, so people say if you don't do nothing, you don't got nothing to worry about. What did he do? Nothing.
It's time to let this guy out of prison. And if they hadn't have caught the real person behind this,
he would have stayed in jail.
In prison for his entire life.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the case for many people, which is a really sad thought.
And think about the fact that there's people that are in jail, that are in prison for life, that did nothing wrong, but because the real perpetrator will never be found because maybe they have passed away, this person is going to continue to stay in prison for the rest of their life and die in there, and they did nothing to get in there. They didn't deserve to be there. It's crazy. It's crazy. My heart goes out to everyone right now that's in jail, in prison, and this is what they're dealing with. This is their faith. This is their case. My heart going out to all of y'all. You didn't do nothing, but yet you're wrongly convicted. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Next up is John Byrne. When John was only 14, he was sentenced to life in prison in Brooklyn.
14.
Apparently he'd taken the life of an off-duty officer in Brooklyn. But he's now 41, and after 27 years, his name was finally cleared. He began crying and hugged his lawyers and the judge in court. He says he's been battling his entire life to try and get out of jail, and he said to the prosecutors, "I don't deserve all the things you've done to me." And the crazy thing is, the prosecutors never even apologized. Bunn and his lawyers said it would be very nice to get an apology, as he deserves one. And I think it's terrible that they sent him behind bars for 27 years and then didn't even say sorry. I hope he gets hefty compensation, but nothing can buy back all that time. Check out the poll in the...
14 years old. He missed a lot. He missed a lot. He missed out on so much when it came to living. Woo, his prime years were spent in jail, every bit of them. Man, I am so sorry, brother. I'm so sorry. But anyway, y'all know what time it is. Like this reaction, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more. As always, the link to the video is going to be down in the description box below. If you haven't already, make sure you follow your boy right here on the Grandman Twitter at Artofkickz. To the next one.